الله يا دايم، 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 الله يا دايم. عرفت الهوى وعرفت هواك، الله يا دايم، الله عرفت الهوى، الله يا دايم، الله يا دايم، وعرفت هواك، الله يا دايم، وأغلقت قلبي على من الله يا دايم، الله يا دايم، وجئت أناديك يا الله يا من
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم، وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. With the power and support of Sayyid Sheikh Muhammad Fawzi al-Karkari, may Allah sanctify his secrets, I start with Assalamu alaikum. And I welcome you to Karkariya Speaks English. And today we have a special guest, like you saw in the trailer, brother or the CD Rami from USA. I want you to introduce yourself, please, or welcome here with our program. Just introduce yourself to the viewers. Talk to us about yourself.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. My name is Rami Koujah. What can I say about myself? I'm an academic. I got my PhD from Princeton, where my area of focus was Islamic law and theology and ethics. And now I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Yale Law School. So I'm just working on some research projects there, trying to write my first book and some articles. I'm not a very interesting person. I'm just very bookish, just your typical academic type of person.
Yeah. That's great, mashallah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Mashallah, you're welcome, brother. And
thank you very much.
Here.
Thank you for having me.
And before we dive into like specific question or the main question, but I want to talk first about like your background, mashallah, as a PhD and everything, like some people say that Sufism is for non-educated people,
Yeah.
like myself. I am high schooler, drop out of college, so maybe they think Sufism is like this. They repent the world, they only make dhikr. So what do you say for these people who have this idea?
Yeah. Where do you begin? I guess it's true because after you join the tariqah, you realize that we're all really uneducated. I mean, so in that sense, like I have to agree with people who might say that, because I mean, subhanAllah, first of all, like let's take the question like very literally. It's kind of absurd, because if you think about the great Sufi masters, like a lot of them were, some of the most accomplished scholars and intellectuals in their time. So Abu Hamid al-Ghazali was, the head of the Nizamiya Madrasa in Baghdad, which was the premier academic institution in the world at the time, right? And he decided to abandon that, and then he writes in Munqidh min al-Dalal, his autobiography, and says, all of this was like a waste of time. It didn't get me anywhere. All that knowledge that I acquired was just veils. And then he decides to abandon that and then pursue the path of tasawwuf. And he says this is where the real knowledge lies. So that's just one example. But there's countless other examples. I mean, you can think of Muhyiddin ibn Arabi and his students. Sadruddin al-Qunawi is one of the scholars who kind of really philosophizes Ibn Arabi's teachings, right? He's actually the person who comes up with the terminology of wahdat al-wujud, and the people that he's interacting and dialoguing with, like one of the people I just actually discovered that there's an exchange of letters between al-Qunawi and Nasiruddin al-Tusi.
Yeah.
Nasiruddin al-Tusi is one of the most famous and significant philosophers in the Islamic tradition, right? He's also the person who built the observatory, and he was a scientist, studied astronomy. But anyways, there's a dialogue between Sadruddin al-Qunawi and Nasiruddin al-Tusi, which shows you that it's not this kind of irrational or backwards type of tradition, but rather Tasawwuf is very much to engage with the cutting-edge sciences and disciplines. And then you can think of an example like Abu al-Hasan al-Shadili, Qaddasallahu sirrah. Al-Azz ibn Abd al-Salam was the most famous scholar in his time in Cairo. He was called Sultan al-Ulama because of how he was Qadi al-Qudat, the Chief Justice, like the most significant academic figure. But whenever Abu al-Hasan al-Shadili would step into the room or speak, he would just quiet down and concede the floor to him, right? Yeah. So, I mean, these are just kind of anecdotes, like examples, illustrations about what's the relationship between knowledge and tasawwuf. But I think for me, someone who studied I don't say this to brag, obviously. Like, I've studied at elite institutions. I've studied with, some of the brightest scholars and intellectuals. And I've been in, all of these kind of very stuffy intellectual academic environments. And I spent a lot of energy and effort reading books, debating, writing, etc. And then I took the bay'ah, and then I was like, wow, I am really ignorant. I don't know anything. All of these philosophy texts that I read, all these kalam books, fiqh, etc. And then I just picked up one of the books of Sidi Sheikh, and I struggle to understand it. Yeah. And I know it's not because like, I can like read some things that are outside my field, like quantum physics, and still kind of understand the gist of it. But this I know is like a completely different language, because he is translating something that is from another dimension. So in that sense, I would say if you think that, like you're too smart for tasawwuf, well, I mean, knowledge is a double-edged sword, it can either be a reason it can ultimately be a veil, that you are not going to recognize the truth if you see it, even if it stares you in the face. Or and this is my personal experience, when you realize that really all of these kind of philosophies and theories, they ultimately don't lead anywhere. And then you have to search for something else, something more genuine, something that is actually grounded, confident, and certain, and well-sourced, you know, in the sense of having a tie to the Book of Allah, to the Ahlul Bayt. That authenticity of knowledge that gives you a level of comfort, a level of certainty, a level of peace and tranquility that you don't get from these abstract academic exercises. So that's the short, that's the long answer, I guess, to your question.
You need it, mashallah. I learned a lot from you, mashallah. And let's say you have your own experience, you know, let's not read it from the books, right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, subhanAllah, like, I think I remember, like, you know, I would read, obviously, about Sufis, and it was all very much abstract and intellectual, like, oh, they talk about Nur, and they talk about, you know, these types of experiences, but you end up kind of dismissing it, even if you're not consciously dismissing it, maybe subconsciously dismissing it as, you know, like asatir, like kind of folk tales or stories, or, you know, people are very enraptured and they're talking in symbolic language and they're having these deep spiritual experiences, but it's nothing really special or different from anything that you yourself have experienced. Until, like, I kind of discovered that wasn't the case. I just read about a whole bunch of things, and I was very, you know, like, when I first, like, kind of thought, you know, I really want to take my relationship with Allah seriously, it was like maybe 2019, 2020, something like that. And obviously I didn't have a sheikh. I was kind of doing it on my own, but we can get to that if you want to ask me about that. But, just searching everywhere, like trying to discover, okay, like, how can I have that relationship with Allah? How can I know my Creator in a very intimate and personal way? That's, you know, because the academics is not getting me any closer. So yeah, you just realize, I think, at that point that, okay, there's knowledge with the lowercase k, and then there's knowledge with the capital K, right? Or, like, you know, lowercase t truth, capital T truth, you know, something that is really genuine, like, for real.
MashaAllah.
And you're not going to get that from books.
Subhanallah, yes, that's mashallah, that's very great. And subhanallah, from your words, now I remember I did this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So if you have, yani, what are the translation or the transcription for this?
Ask the people of remembrance if you don't know. They
were gonna give you, because they have all of the knowledge, you know. So mashallah, and we saw this also with the last trip of the Sheikh to USA. He's talking about every topic they have in this AI and everything. So mashallah. Okay, let's go back now into the past. I want to know more about you. Like, how was your life before Tariqa Karkariya? Who is Sayyidi Rami before Tariqa Karkariya? Especially your relationship with Allah, like.
I mean, like I said, I think it was, you know, I was always into Islamic studies, and, like, you know, I want to study the ulum al-shar'iyya and things like that, and but that was very much the intention wasn't right, you know, because you want to come with knowledge because you have this hubb al-riyasa, you know, you want to be able to be like, oh, I know more than you, and I know all of these things, and dictate to people about, okay, no, your wudu is not right, and things like that. I think that's maybe part of the motivation that got me initially on the path, on, you know, wanting to learn. Not a genuine intention. I mean, I was very much kind of, I love knowledge and learning and things like that. So I just wanted to acquire more and more information, I guess, because that's really what it is. It's not really, I think, if I want to kind of give a word to it, you have a lot of information, but you don't have real knowledge, right? And that's maybe the difference between ilm and ma'rifah, in a sense. I don't know if that's a perfectly accurate translation, but it's one way to think about it.
Yes. Okay.
So, subhanallah, like, I just realized, you know, like, you go into academics, but then there's nothing grounding you. So you go into these debates about hadith. Okay, you start to kind of doubt everything in the tradition. Okay, did the Prophet ﷺ say this or not say that? Okay, is this all just a human construct? And very slowly, the ground that you are walking on starts to dissolve and disappear, and you're left with nothing to hold on to, because in the academy there's just no such thing as truth, right? It's all just social constructions, human inventions. And so you begin to think of the tradition like that. And so you think, when you're reading someone like Abu Hamid al-Ghazali or reading someone like Ibn Arabi, you're thinking to yourself, okay, he's just a person who is writing from his perspective, and I can just study him as someone who belongs to, like a humanistic tradition in a very general sense, but not as someone who can actually guide me and instruct me or convey actual tangible truth. I think at the end of the day, you just start to lose any confidence or faith that there is anything like that. So, I'm kind of circling around because I went to law school too.
Yeah, I went to law school, mashallah.
And
for the bachelor or the master degree?
Well, in the United States, law school is a graduate degree. Right? So, like you do your 4 years undergrad, then you go to law school. So I've been in school for a long, long time.
Okay.
What I would say, and then law school trains you to be a supreme skeptic. You can see something from this perspective. Oh, you can argue it from this side. So you're never actually supposed to take a position. You're just supposed to develop the skills in order to argue against every other position that exists. All right? So that was before doing the PhD. And then you go into the PhD. Now you're acquainted with all this theory. So at the end, Rami in 2019, 2020 was the most skeptical, the most cynical person ever. Right? I'm not the only person like that. Lots of academics are. But skeptical in the sense that, what is truth? What can we know about truth? Like this, I think like I'm all fancy and cool because I can use all these academic jargon in order to undermine your position or whatever it might be. And then cynical in the sense that, okay, well, I can never actually get at the truth, and maybe there is no truth, and everyone is selfish and motivated, and, the world is going to hell anyway. Like, why should we care about this? So just a deep, deep cynic. Right? And so this was like,
and COVID also came.
So COVID came, and then, but I wanted to change. And so, Allah put me on a path that, I began to kind of study the tradition and Quran a little bit more seriously, with a little bit more humility. Still was not very humble, but I was still kind of freestyling everything. I would read a text, and they would say okay, do dhikr with this name of Allah if you want this, or practice this. And so I would try, and I was just grasping at everything I can get my hands on, trying this, experimenting with that. I was doing tahajjud, doing dhikr at night, but it was just not getting me anywhere. At the end of the day, you just become and this lasted for probably 2 or 3 years. I would worship a lot, but it was just fruitless. It wasn't making me feel like I was closer to Allah. It wasn't making me feel that anything really. I wasn't getting the, you would read some of these Sufi masters, and they would say, oh, just do dhikr, and then you'll have these disclosures and futuhat and things like that. I was okay, I'm sitting here waiting, when's it gonna happen? So I was just trying everything. If this wouldn't work, I'd try that. If that wouldn't work, I would try this. And I felt very kind of lost at sea, I guess, and that's really the main difference. That was the biggest change after I took the bay'ah. Now it was I felt sure-footed. It's okay, I haven't actually had any crazy futuhat or disclosures or kashf or anything like that, but I just feel very at peace, very tranquil, that I'm walking the straight path right now under the guidance of my Sheikh, and he's telling me exactly what I need to do in order to keep walking on this path, in order to not stray, without getting into any of this, skeptical debates or, things based off of opinion or, I think this or I think that, because you want to understand what does the verse of the Quran mean, for example, what is the story about relationship between Sayyidina Khidr and Musa alayhi salam, for example, and you read the tafsir tradition and you'll find like 200 opinions, and then you'll go ask scholars that are alive right now, be like, okay, it could mean this, it could mean that, and maybe it means this, and then I think it means that.
Yeah.
So then at the end of the day, like you're back at square one.
Yeah.
What have you actually benefited me? But then when you actually sit and you ask Sayyidi Sheikh a question, or he talks about something, he's like, I'm not speaking based off of my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking because off of conjecture or speculation, like this is what it means. And then that just gives you a sense of peace, confidence that, even if you don't understand fully what he's saying, that at least, things are not, just up for grabs, that there is something that is grounding the knowledge that is being conveyed.
Yeah.
And that gives you a degree of assurance that, even if you're straying, even if you are falling short or whatever, you have the curriculum that's already been laid out for you, right? And you're following that curriculum. And the promise of the curriculum is that, if you do follow diligently and do well, like you will reap the fruits of the tariqah, right?
No. Yes.
So, alhamdulillah, that's really the main difference is like, I was just...
See, the Sheikh give you the truth. There's no opinion.
Yeah, there's no, what do they say about the Ashab al-Kahf is rajman bil ghayb.
Yeah.
And that's what really all the books are at the end of the day. It's like, this person's rajman bil ghayb, this person's rajman bil ghayb, which means, just speculating about the ghayb, right? Because really, how can you know anything about the ghayb through the dunya, right? How can you know about the ghayb through the mulk?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense logically, right? So you need someone who has direct access to that knowledge that can be a guide for you.
Yes, alhamdulillah, subhanAllah. See, the Sheikh answers like you said, exactly, like he give you the truth. And whatever the truth that you can take, because sometimes you cannot handle the real truth.
Yeah.
So I remember last Ramadan, some disciple asked about the nafs, the lower self, and he said the answer, and he said that after he finished the answer, he said, and the reality of the answer, and then he gave a more in-depth, answer. And then he said the reality of this reality, like 3 or 4 questions, just talking about the lower self.
Yeah.
And I think, of course, he can go even more and more of this reality and the lower self, but we couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So, see, Sheikh, mashallah, tabarakallah. Okay, now, what's the story of Sidi Rami? How did you know the tariqah?
The tariqah, I wasn't actually looking for a sheikh at the time. I was definitely still trying to cultivate my relationship with Allah. And like I told you, I was getting advice from people that had more knowledge than me, and they were suggesting me about things that I can do, but it wasn't really leading me anywhere. And then I actually had an interview for a job at the University of Chicago, and one of the interviewers was Sidi Yusuf Keswet.
Yes, mashallah.
So I wanted the job, obviously. I didn't get it, but alhamdulillah. So Sidi Yusuf, I needed to do research about the people that were interviewing me so I can know a little bit about them. And then after Googling Sidi Yusuf, I saw that, he was doing this interview with this man wearing this strange dress at the University of Chicago. And I was very curious, what's going on here? So I started searching, and then I, go on Google, and all these search results come up, about the Karkariya and the testimonials and all these things.
Yeah.
That was the first exposure. And then I was very intrigued. Initially my first reaction was this seems pretty weird. I don't know about this.
Yes.
This is, very out there. And then I just started, I think the testimonials, like, I was like, all these people can't be making it up. Like, there's got to be something to this, but still, I was very much, a master skeptic and a cynic. So everything about me was like, yeah, maybe this, maybe that.
Yeah.
I was like the master of like coming up with excuses to dodge things. Like, I could give me anything and I can find a way around it.
MashaAllah, yes.
But yeah, so then I think I spoke to some people in the tariq. I think I might have been Sidi Yusuf, who basically told me like, yeah, pray istikhara and, start doing the word. And, I thought to myself, okay, like, there's all these testimonials, like, what do I have to lose? Let me try it. So I prayed istikhara, didn't get any signs, prayed it 2 nights, 3 nights, 7 nights, didn't feel any different. So then I was like, okay, I'll start the word now for 40 days, see what happens. And I mean, the first night I started the word, like, I immediately felt, something from it.
Yeah.
Right? It was, effective.
So it's not like the same 3 years you were before doing all the worships from the internet and books.
Exactly.
It is something different.
Yeah, it definitely felt like from the very first time I gave the word. It wasn't like that for all the 40 days. And, I didn't see anything or have any, visions like a lot of other disciples have from the istikhara. So I thought I was still very skeptical, very doubtful. And I thought, okay, maybe like that's not the way that Allah is going to communicate it to me. But I still felt like, okay, like I do feel like there's something here. So yeah, I was doing the word, and I remember one time, like during the word, it was a very, I had a vision where it was very brief enough for me to doubt still. Where basically Sidi Sheikh appeared to me and told me, come with me, I'm going to build you, a place to do your khulwa.
MashaAllah.
It was a very quick thing. And I thought, oh wow, like that was very moving. But it didn't cure me of my skepticism and doubt still, but it was enough, I think, for me to hold on to. And then, I kept on doing it. I just felt like, this is one of my illnesses, is that it's one of my diseases that I always want to, what does the Quran say? People who play with doubt. I forgot the Arabic. Yeah, like يلعبون بالظن, something like that. I can't remember the exact verse, but there's something, there's a theme like that in the Quran that comes up, and that's very much me. Like I entertain the skepticism and the doubts a lot. I'm always thinking, okay, well, what about this? What about that? So like that was a problem, obviously. And subhanAllah, it was something that, Sidi Sheikh called me out for, like the very first moment after I gave him bay'ah. So I tried to resist that, inclination, and then continue to do the word and learn more about the tariqah. And that was maybe for like 3 or 4 months or something like that before I had the chance to give Sidi Sheikh bay'ah.
Oh, mashallah. So it's not 40 days.
I did more than 40 days, yeah. And because I was just desperate. Like I just really wanted to have someone who could just tell me, okay, do this, don't do that. Like I really wanted someone who would lead me to Allah, that would actually give me knowledge of Allah, that would actually allow me to experience Allah's nur. Like I was just to the point, like, even if this doesn't turn out to be real, like I'm willing to give it a shot, even if I have doubts about it. Like that's just the desperation, because I had just felt so exhausted from all of those nights, like spending doing dhikr and worship and prayer and just not getting anywhere. Like I needed something. So it was really an act of desperation.
Subhanallah.
So Yeah, I wanted to give also the bay'ah in person. So at the time, Sidi Sheikh was in Canada.
Oh, so. Yeah.
And I decided to do the drive to him. It was like a 12-hour drive or something like that. Like a really tiring trip, but I thought,
by yourself.
Like it's worth it. You know, I think if you know, if you want something, then you're willing to put in what it costs to get there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And initially, like Sidi Sheikh was not receiving any students. Like he was spending time with family.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a very private time. And there was a faqir who was hosting him, and I said I couldn't make it the day before when he was like meeting everyone. Like there was a majma and like people were coming to visit and things like that. And then the next day it was like, you know, there was no fuqara. He was just going to have some private time with family.
Yeah.
So I was like, please, like, I just want 30 minutes. Like I'm just driving 12 hours, like 30 minutes. Like I'll be more than happy.
Inshallah.
I just want to see him. I wasn't even sure if I was going to give the bay'ah at that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll go. Like I just need to see who this person is for myself. So then I make the drive and I go to the home, and Sidi Sheikh was sitting there, and he was sitting with a couple of people, and then, you know, he was very kind. He's like, oh, where are you from? What do you do? What are you here for? And then when he asked me what are you here for, I was like, oh, I'm here to give bay'ah. Like we're just I felt too like embarrassed to say anything else.
Yeah.
So I did, I gave the bay'ah, and then, you know, subhanAllah, like, again, like, the skeptic in me, like, you know, you give bay'ah, Sidi Sheikh says, okay, do istighfar now, kind of, look at the center of the darkness. This is the darkness of your nafs, you know, and then, you know, dive into it and start searching for the nur. And I was like, am I seeing anything? I'm not really sure. And Sidi Sheikh was like spending like more and more time with me, like more than normally when he gives people bay'ah.
Inshallah.
So I was like, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if I see anything. So, and then he said, okay, fine. Just go sit and do istighfar, for a bit, and, like 30 minutes or so, and I'll come back and check on you. So I go and I'm doing istighfar, and I start to see, you know, lights, but I'm still like, oh, is this me hallucinating? Am I imagining it because I want it so badly?
It's a placebo effect.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. So Sidi Sheikh comes back after 30 minutes. You know, he's like, okay, are you saying anything? I said, I think I'm saying, he's like, bada'na bid-dhann. He's like, oh, you're starting with, doubt and skepticism.
Yeah.
But he was like very kind of playful about it.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, I know I have a problem. Like I can't, So he said, okay, just, he's like, look, you can't, entertain these doubts, you know, endlessly. You know, even if it's not real, like at least Allah is giving you something positive rather than giving you something negative. So he's like, just try to, you know, spend some time with it and work on it. And he's like told me, he's like, yeah, like you need a little bit extra because you kind of have this problem. And, you know, even like hearing that about myself, like actually was a good feeling, because I was like, okay, like you see me for who I am, and you realize that I need, you know, like a medicine that's different than what other people's medicine might be.
Exactly.
And I really appreciated that, even though he's like calling out a defect within me, but alhamdulillah, like that's what I'm here for. Like I'm not
for the
coming
truth.
because, you know, I already know anything. I'm coming because I know I'm a sick person. So then he said, okay, just continue doing istighfar. And then it didn't really feel like that long, but after I checked the time, I was like doing istighfar for like 2 hours. And then like I was seeing a lot of things at that point. And then, you know, when Sidi Sheikh came and asked me about it, he started explaining to me, he's like, okay, well, what you're seeing here means this, and this means that. And like, you can't make that up, you know, obviously, because everything, whenever he gives an answer to visions and things like that, it's always very consistent. It's all because it's based off of knowledge. And so then I was like, okay, Sidi Sheikh, like, thank you so much. Like, I'm going to go back now because I don't want to take away from your private time. And, you know, like, you're here with family. And he's like, no, like, you're not bothering me. Like, please feel free to stay. And I was like, no, I can't. Like, I feel really bad. Like, you know, he's supposed to go back to Morocco in a day or two.
Yeah.
And I don't want to impose because, you know, I'm already coming here as like a favor.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, stay. Like, you're not bothering me. It's like, it's completely fine. And I said, okay. I mean, like, I didn't expect that, right? I thought like, okay, I would just maybe see him for a few minutes and then go back. So, subhanAllah, like, I didn't realize really that I was actually getting a really special experience, really special treatment because like we would go to have meals and Sidi Sheikh was the one cooking. You know, he was making breakfast, lunch and dinner. And I didn't know, I thought this was like normal. Like I didn't think it was, but it's like, oh my gosh, like, And by the way, his cooking is actually really, really good. So like I got to spend time with him and like he would be the one to initiate coming to me. Like, he's like, okay, what's going on? Like, do you have questions and things like that? Like, I had not expected that type of care. You know, like, I think like, okay, this guy has so many murids. Like, I'm going to be fighting to get any attention from him anytime. But he's actually like just so deeply invested in your progress. Like, he wants you to succeed and he wants to make sure that you're doing well. And that for me was like, that blew me away. Like,
and the sacrifice, you know, just the time with his family, you know.
I mean, it just completely blew me away. Like, my experience with professors and, you know, intellectuals before was always like, oh, maybe I might have time for you on Thursday. And then like, you know, they end up not meeting with you or they're like doing something else while they're answering your questions. And, you know, like they couldn't be bothered with you essentially. Like that's how you experience a lot of people. But Sidi Sheikh, it's almost as if he's like, you know, you're the focus of my attention right now. Like, and because like this is really important. And, you know, I tried to make the most of that night because the person hosting him was like, you know, take advantage of Sidi Sheikh's presence and like do extra worship, istighfar. And like, when I woke up for, at the last third of the night, like I was seeing like really remarkable visions.
Awake, visions awake, not sleeping.
I mean, subhanAllah, like that whole time, like I was experiencing things and seeing things and
with no doubts now, or still the doubts? There is still
no, they would come and go.
But it's better than before.
Definitely better than before. So, and then even after I went back, I would see light, and then I was the doubts were still a challenge for me. Like I would still struggle with it until subhanAllah, you know, a few months passed, like it just went away, you know, on its own. Like it just, I didn't really, I mean, obviously by the barakah of Sidi Sheikh, like, it just, they just dissolved and disappeared, even though like, I wasn't having as significant visions later on, you know? I think that's, like,
Alhamdulillah,
100% end.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
Like father, like son. No, you're like on the footsteps of Sidi Sheikh. Like when he treats you, you want to treat people. MashaAllah. So just, we're going to have a little break now, Sidi al-Qurayshi, if you can, and then we're going to come back to Sidi Rami. Welcome back to Karkariya Speaks English with Dr. Rami, Sidi Rami from USA. The question, last question, is the last trip with the Sidi Sheikh. He come to USA, visit the universities and everything, and we see you with him in the pictures and everything. So can you talk us about this trip, the last trip with Sidi Sheikh?
What I'll say is, I got to spend time with Sidi Sheikh twice in the United States. He came earlier, I think it was maybe in November, to Berkeley and Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came now to New Haven, to Yale. All right. Before I answer that question, I guess, just cause I feel like people should know about this.
Yeah.
After I took the bay'ah, I really wanted to go to the Zawiyah, really, really badly.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in very difficult financial circumstances. I thought, subhanAllah, I'll never be able to actually afford going to the Zawiyah for, I don't know how long, maybe a few years. It was just extremely, but I really wanted it. And I was willing to do whatever it takes, to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sidi Sheikh came to California. That's the west coast of the United States. I'm on the east coast, and I thought to myself, man, I can't even afford to go there. Just flying across the country, getting a ticket, getting a hotel, things like that.
Yeah.
But I just really wanted it so badly, and I was making so much dua, and then subhanallah, it just became super easy. I don't know how, but I was able to, Allah arranged things.
Yeah.
So that, I could come to Morocco with a fraction of the price that it normally would have cost, because I got university funding to attend this thing in Egypt. And then, obviously that shaved off a significant portion of the expenses, and I was able to then come and spend a few weeks in the Zawiyah. And then when I wanted to go to California,
mm-hmm.
I first of all, I said, I managed to get, funding from the university to go to California, but I still didn't have enough to have accommodations. But I thought, okay, I'll buy the plane ticket, and then I'll worry about where I'm going to sleep
mm-hmm.
after the fact. And so then, subhanAllah, I call my friend who lives in the Bay Area, and I thought okay, maybe he knows someone that can host me or something like that. And then he's like, I'm actually, my wife is not in the apartment. I'm not in the apartment. You can just have my place. And so I got free accommodation while Sidi Sheikh was visiting. I got to spend time with him. Which was incredible. If Sidi Sheikh comes and visits your country, do not waste that opportunity.
Yeah.
For me, I was willing to go sleep in a car. My plan was, I was going to take my tent, and I was just going to set up a tent and just sleep, on the streets, and then spend the day with Sidi Sheikh. Wallahi, I was going to do that. I was okay with it.
Yeah.
But Allah made it easy, alhamdulillah, even more comfortable than a hotel. So what I'm saying is, don't miss the opportunity, because the experience that you get with Sidi Sheikh
mm-hmm.
when he comes and visits your country is completely different than the experience that you get in the Zawiyah.
MashaAllah.
It's just very different.
Yeah.
He's, I don't know how to describe it. In the Zawiyah, it gets busy. He has a schedule. He has work.
Yeah.
So time with him is very precious.
Yeah.
But over there, you just have hours upon hours. You're praying all the prayers with him. You're sharing meals with him. You are seeing things with him. And the conversations that you have are just not conversations that you would have regularly in the Zawiyah.
Yeah.
So, and then you get to also experience how kind of the world reacts to Sidi Sheikh, because that itself is really remarkable.
MashaAllah.
Just random people will just come up and want to say hi to him and take pictures. And I'm just what are you seeing here? Obviously I know, what the tariqah is about, what Sidi Sheikh teaches, but you don't know anything about the tariqah. You might not know anything about Islam either, but he just, compels a reaction from people. So there would just be people who would just come and like you'd see them like feeling emotional, or some people would be like, oh my gosh, you guys look so cool together, all wearing the muraqqas, and it's very a really cool amazing experience. Like that would just happen a lot.
MashaAllah.
And then when Sidi Sheikh is like, you know, visiting things, like he will basically, he would share the significance of certain places that we would visit, like based off of visions that he had, or that's really remarkable. So when he came to Yale, like for example, like we took him to the Sterling Library, which is like a really famous library, one of the most significant research centers in the world, and they have this like ancient Near Eastern studies center, and you know, studying like ancient languages like Sumerian and things like that. And Sidi Sheikh was very interested in it, and you could tell that, you know, like he was going through the library and picking up these books on Sumerian language and looking at these different materials, and he has like an understanding about it that is just like beyond my comprehension. Like I think he wrote a note, like at the library, there's like these little boxes that people could just write notes in and leave in. And he was saying how like he visited Yale, and like he ended up being reconnected with the origins of humanity. And it was something like, that's how it felt. Like I was like, this is a blast.
Yeah.
Like just worshiping and celebrating Allah. Like we're having fun doing it. And then at Yale, I was really impressed, I guess, by the reaction that people had, because there was a lot of graduate students, I mean, people from all sorts of backgrounds, academic backgrounds, that were really, you know, we had multiple events and the same people were showing up on a number of occasions, which kind of showed you that, you know, these people really took an interest in the materials that the subjects that Sidi Sheikh was talking about, because it's definitely unlike anything that anyone there has ever been exposed to. And, you know, if you had let the time go on, like the questions would have been endless. Like people just had question after question, and he is, like there was a deep level of engagement. I guess like it wasn't like a typical lecture in the sense that, you know, people that are only specialized in that field might want to attend and then have a few questions. But these were people that you could tell were being challenged to kind of think about things differently. And so they were asking questions that are not typical to an academic setting, I guess, like about, you know, what we would call haqa'iq, right? Like divine realities or things that are related to a higher level truth. And then he even went to a boarding school, which is one of these like elite, prestigious high schools. And the kids there, like they're high school students, but they were just like, I thought like, okay, high school students are going to, you know, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, you know, they like movies, music, Kendrick Lamar, things like that. Like, why would they care about a sheikh wearing the muraqqa, you know, all colors? But like, no, like these people were like, actually, like you could tell that there was the fitra in them was activated somehow, you know, they were inspired to be engaged and ask questions, and they were asking like really interesting questions. Like they asked him like about aliens, and I was like, I thought to myself, it's a really interesting question, but it's interesting that they asked it to Sidi Sheikh. You know,
they want to hear us.
They want to hear like from his. They're not asking it to a physicist. They're not asking it to a biologist. They're asking it to Sidi Sheikh, or like asking about questions like, how do we explain like suffering and evil in the world? Like they were very interested in the answers that he had. So like when you tour with Sidi Sheikh in other countries, like you'll just find like just random people just like start like gravitating around you and towards you and be interested and want to learn more. And it's a really just don't miss out on the opportunity. I would say for sure. And then you want to spend time with Sidi Sheikh. Take it from me. Make the intention, make the dua. Allah will
take care of everything.
He will take care of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I thought like I would not go. Like I went in December and January, and then now I'm here for Ramadan.
MashaAllah.
You know, because I mean, as soon as I came to this, I was like, I want to come again.
Yeah, of course. You cannot, it's the best place here, you know.
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah, tabarakallah. And exactly like you said, like these 3 words, I don't know how. When I want to go to see the Sheikh, but I don't know how. I don't know how everything has been successful.
Yeah.
So we all had this experience, subhanAllah, money-wise, everything. Situations are, you know, just to come to see the Sheikh. So inshallah, the people will experience this themselves if they have this intention, inshallah. And the last question is, what do you advise or give like last advice for people who are listening to you?
I'm definitely not in a position to be giving people advice, but I'm going to give my past self advice. I'm going to give the Rami from a little while back advice.
Okay.
And the advice to him would be just purify your intention.
Mm-hmm.
You know, work on your intention. The nafs is tricky.
Yeah.
It'll make you think that your intentions are pure, that you want knowledge for good reasons, or, you know, you're praying for good reasons, but there's always something that is there if you pay attention and you look at it, but the nafs is trying to hide itself from you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, you know, just make dua, like whatever you're searching for. I think everyone is searching for meanings. People are searching for something fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they know it or not, they're searching for Allah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I would say be sincere in your search and take Allah as a partner in this search. In other words, go to Allah. Ask Him for guidance. Ask Him to help purify your intention and to show you the path. Because this is Sidi Sheikh's advice too. When he says, he's like, I don't tell people to follow the tariqah. I don't tell people to give bay'ah. I say to people, do istikhara.
Mm-hmm.
Ask Allah.
Yeah.
And it should just be between you and Allah and no one else. One of my faults was that I let other people into the... I consulted with other people. I let them be part of the decision making. And that was a mistake. But alhamdulillah, I mean, ultimately I had to make actually a decision that went against other people's advice, right?
Yes.
So I would just say, do that. Just have it between you and Allah.
Mm-hmm.
Pray the istikhara and purify and cleanse your intention. And the intention to make when is to want to know Allah, want to be closer to Allah.
Yeah.
That's the only intention that will not impose limits on you and impose limits on what Allah ultimately responds with.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Thank you so much, Sidi Rami, Dr. Rami. We are very blessed and
thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you, Sidi Qureshi, for having us. And in the end, if anything is right and truth is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if anything wrong is from our lower self and from me. So see you again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.